the White House had to double down on its dumbest impeachment defense for 45 ever. Watching the White House put together its defense of 45 in the impeachment trial that begins this week, one has to ask, were they even fucking trying? And it doesn't look like they were. After the Democratic House managers released a 111-page indictment providing copious detail on the events that led to his impeachment, the nature of 45's misconduct on unconstitutional basis for his removal. And the constitutional basis for his removal, yeah. 45's attorneys responded with a 6-page document that would have been shocking were it not just the kind of thing that we've come to expect from the White House. Indeed, it reads as though it was written by a 9th grader who saw an episode of Law & Order and learned just enough legal terms to throw them around incorrectly. It makes no attempt to contest the facts, instead just asserting over and over that the squatter is innocent and that the entire impeachment is a legitimate call unlawful and unconstitutionally invalid, with no apparent understanding of what those terms mean. The articles of impeachment, 45's lawyers say, failed to allege any crime or violation of law whatsoever. It does allege crimes, and it does mention a couple of violations of law whatsoever, let alone high crimes and misdemeanors as required by the Constitution. They then repeat this argument multiple times throughout a screed seemingly pitched to the faux news host who will spend the upcoming days repeating these absurd claims. The trouble, as any historian or constitutional scholar will tell you, is that just as there are crimes the squatter could commit crimes that would not be impeachable, say shoplifting a candy bar, there has never been any requirement that impeachment can only be used for violations of criminal law. Not only were the framers deeply concerned about the potential of the squatter abusing his office at the time the Constitution was written, there was no such thing as a federal criminal code. 45 has found the one constitutional expert who would take such a position. However, I don't even know how this guy became a Harvard professor. But frequent faux news guest Alan Dumbass Dershowitz, 145, added to his defense team last week. Criminal conduct is required in order for a squatter to be impeached. Dershowitz now claims, to the puzzlement of pretty much everyone who knows anything about this topic. Since hypocrisy is something of a job of requirement for working for 45, meaning basically hypocrites, Dumbass Dershowitz is naturally on video making exactly the opposite argument back in 1998 when Bill Clinton was president. It certainly doesn't seem to have a crime. It doesn't have to be a crime if you have somebody who completely corrupts the office of squatter and who abuses trust and who poses great danger to our liberty, as he had said at that time. To illustrate how foolish the White House's argument is, let me suggest a few things the squatter could do that would not violate any criminal statute, but that pretty much everyone in both parties would consider grounds for impeachment. The squatter states in a news conference that if Russia wants to invade Alaska, that would be fine with him. Taking the opportunity, Vladimir Putin sends a force across the Bering Sea to occupy the state. The squatter refuses to deploy U.S. forces to repel them, then says, to be honest, if everyone's got their eye on Hawaii, I'm not going to stand in your way. With the legal advisory in hand from the Department of Justice saying that anti-nepotism laws do not apply to the White House staff, the squatter fires every last member of that staff and replaces them with members of his extended family, including making his 18-year-old nephew, whose only work experience is manning the soft-serve machine at a Dairy Queen, the national security advisor. The squatter declares that his job has become tedious and says he'll be spending the rest of his term in the White House residence getting drunk and playing Grand Theft Auto. So why is the White House falling back on this argument when it's so plainly wrong as a matter of both law and logic? There are a number of explanations. The most obvious is that they know the squatter is guilty of the central charge driving the impeachment, that he abused his power by trying to coerce a foreign government to help his re-election campaign by discrediting a potential opponent. So the last thing they want to do is argue about the facts of the case, except in the most perfunctory way. I just got impeached for making a perfect phone call, the squatter tweeted last week. Technically, that phone call wasn't even perfect. It was basically showing that you violated that law. Another reason they might have seized on the no crime defense is that despite being completely wrong, it has an intuitive appeal to it. If we're calling this phrase of impeachment a trial and the entire process bears some resemblance to a criminal proceeding, then there ought to be a criminal violation, right? That makes sense as long as you don't understand the facts of the law, which 45 and his blowers don't. Are you willing yourself desperately to ignore them? That describes well 45's allies on faux news and the evidence they speak to, which is where his entire strategy is going to be hitched to. It's why he assembled his legal team from people he sees frequently on Fox News, and why running through all his arguments about impeachment is the false claim that the entire process is illegitimate and can therefore be dismissed out of hand, with as much indignation and whining about unfair treatment as possible. That logic is also why Republicans will do everything they can to prevent witnesses from testifying in the trial. If you've convinced yourself that the process is illegitimate in every way, then at that stage, the Republicans have control of it. What's wrong with turning into a sham, then shutting it down quickly as possible? To return to the questions with which I began, it's not quite that the White House isn't trying to defend 45 in a serious way. It's that they decided that they don't really have to.